And let us turn to the Gospel of Mark in the 13th chapter. So hear this word from our Lord. He gives a word from the prophets. But in those days after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see that the Son of Man is coming in the clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels, gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the very ends of heaven. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. It is a global perspective that we have here from Jesus, that the prophets paint for us like in Daniel, giving us that picture of an end times that Jesus foresaw as well, saying that the foreign powers will come into our comfortable world and in our place of Jerusalem and Israel and overthrow, and the temple will come down. He was looking toward that and preparing the people for that. Jesus takes us to that place before we get to the hope candle. Jesus takes you to that place in your own life when it felt as though the stars were just coming down from the heavens and nothing would be the same again in your life, in which all hope that you once had, all dreams and plans that you once had were just squeezed out and away, and it's as though the sun would never rise again on a new day. He takes us to that kind of a place maybe that we're uncomfortable to go when we begin Advent. For I'd rather be in that place of twinkling lights and hot cocoa, That's where we go on this Advent season, into God's hopes and dreams. May in some way we set ours aside, or at least open them up, that God will transform our expectations for the season, my wants, my desires, so that they become God's, even in that way that my will is shaped by God's will. One place where I began to first learn it, or maybe learn it again in a new way, was when I was right in the thick and in the midst of seminary. Bonnie and I had moved to Dallas, Texas, and there I was in the midst of seminary Bible study work and learning about what it means to be a Christian, but what it means to be a pastor with Christians as well, and how I might do that in a local church setting. And there I was learning in classroom settings about it, but it was time to have an internship. An internship meaning going into a place to actually engage in mission and ministry. And one place that I did an internship was about a 1.5 years time at Parkland Memorial Hospital. Parkland Memorial is in the urban setting and area of Dallas, Texas. And it's a hospital that would serve the community as a place where people would go when they were in desperate need and barely hanging on for life, because it's a hospital that any violent crime or any shooting or any stabbing or any way that somebody's life was threatened, and that kind of, they go to Parkland Memorial Hospital. It's a trauma hospital. But I was called as an internship and as a young person to go into that hospital to learn and to serve at the same time, to bring hope, to bring good news, to bring compassion for others. And there I went in, and as soon as I stepped in, I realized I'm in a foreign place. I thought that the hospital was foreign in itself, in a sense, but now I even felt more out of place. Because I looked around and I thought, there's something here that I've not experienced before. Not in the hospital, because it was as though everybody knew everyone in an odd kind of a way. In a way that was like they were almost at home. Now, who is at home in a hospital? We come and we go so quickly in a hospital. You're there but for a few days, and you move on sometimes even too soon, but you never quite feel at home. But these people looked like they were at home. I at first couldn't tell the difference between the nursing staff, the physicians, the patients, because they were dressed in their casual wear, in whatever they wore at home. They weren't dressed in that hospital gown. You know, the hospital gown that leaves you vulnerable in the back? That hospital gown that makes you uncomfortable in itself, the thing that you would never wear anywhere else ever. And there you have that on and trying to hold on to yourself in a hospital with that silly gown. They didn't have that on. They were wearing their own pajamas. They were wearing their own street clothes, what they would just wear every day. I realized they even treated one another with a familiarity, almost as though they had known one another for the longest time. But how could that be? Until I realized or discovered or learned that they had been sharing, those patients, a struggle and a challenge in their lives with their nurses. And whenever you do that, and you share with somebody else your struggles, anxieties, and fears in life, you become related, connected. A friendship is bonded there. But it was still different in that place. And what it was, when I looked around, I realized that I was the only guy. They were all ladies, every one of them. Every one of the patients, every one of the staff, they were all ladies. I was the only guy who walked into there. No wonder I felt a little bit out of place when every head turned to look at me. That was like saying, you just took a wrong turn, didn't you, buddy? You just found yourself in a place that you didn't expect or anticipate that you would be. You probably mean you go down the hall into another wing of the hospital where you ought to belong. Because I was just surrounded by women who were in their last trimester of a pregnancy, and they were all great with child. And I realized there they were, needing care in a time of at risk. It was the wing of the hospital that cared for at-risk pregnancies, and there they would live for weeks and even months, removed from a place of the world in their lives which was at risk. High stress. These women lived in the highest places of stress, in their home life even. Their relationships were at stress. Finances at stress. Their physical bodies were at stress. And when you live with that kind of stress and that kind of a fear and that kind of an anxiety continually, and always, it's a place that puts you at such a risk that there's a fear of losing life. And that's where they were. They needed to be removed from that environment and put into a place where they could be at home, where they could find peace, where they could find hope, where they could find again a life for themselves and their unborn, into a new place, a new day. It was like a world that they needed that was a cocoon that would protect them from that time. That's why it is that they knew one another so well, because they shared their anxieties and their fears together, the struggles that they had, and how it would be that they would go back home and be able to have any semblance then of life and of safety and of taking anxieties away to have a new day for themselves. With a new baby, you know what kind of hopes and dreams one has when you are expecting a child and they're coming and all that heightened expectation there. So who would I be entering into that place with them? I learned and discovered the greatest gift to bring. It was that which I believe Mary was learning when the angel Gabriel came to her. When the angel Gabriel came to Mary, she was in her teenage years as a young woman who had the answers in life, who had the hopes and visions for her life. The direction that she would go into, she was so clear and certain about it. She had her hopes and her dreams packaged up. And there the angel Gabriel came to her and told her something brand new that she needed to hear, of a hope and expectation broader than herself that would reshape and reform her. The words that the angel Gabriel said, you heard them. God simply said through the angel, you have been favored by God. You have been favored by God. There's many ways that translation is in our New Testament. You have found favor. You have been favored by. You are favored by God. Why there are so many different ways that's translated and rendered into English from the Greek is because it's a challenge to bring it all forward in our own English language. Because what it comes out of is this tense called the perfect tense. The perfect tense is that which says that which God had ordained and made to be in its complete and best and most perfect of state. And God has declared Mary to be that. You have been favored by God, it says. You have been long ago. Every time God calls somebody, it was like from the womb. It was like from the very beginning of their lives, God favored them, did and does and always will. That's the way that is inside of that simple phrase that the angel gives. You were, you are, and you always will be, Mary, favored by God. Well, that word favored is also for us needing to be opened up. Because how I often interpret favored means blessed. Well, it means blessed in the way of you're given certain privilege, or you're getting certain gifts, or you're endowed with some certain success, or some certain ways then that God has just blessed you, and so everything ought to be good and well in life. But it's much more significant than that. It's much deeper than that. Because you see, that's just the hot cocoa kind of an understanding and the twinkly lights understanding of being favored. The favor that God gives is a blessedness that only the phrase that comes after it can fully define. God is with you. That's how Mary knows that she's favored, always has been, always will be by God, is because God is with you. You see, that's the lesson to learn from Mary in this, in her time and with God. That's what I learned in Parkland Memorial Hospital on that ward, is to simply be in the presence of others and saying, God has given you favor, has blessed you, has from the beginning, is now, and always will be. You are a blessed child of God. When we know that, life comes into this place of a wholeness, completeness, a perfected state. All is well. We have a sense of wellness around us where the stress level can drop. The anxieties can melt away, and we can feel at ease and at home with our God. And a wellness can be there then in the spirit and in the being. But then to know that God is with you, that's what I found as a chaplain was the wonderful gift to give to another. As God first gives it to us, I am with you. We give it to one another, the gift of presence. It's even then a holy presence when we give it. When I say, I am with you, that's all that Mary needed to hear. I am with you. Then she could move forward. And you know what next she said? How is this going to happen? She didn't deny it. She didn't say, no way it can be. No what ifs that were there, but just how is it going to happen? Like a wonder, a mystery of a wonder that would be revealed to her because she knew God would be with her. And it would happen. And it would be. I discovered there in that Parkland Hospital that entering into the room and honoring and respecting another human being that says, you are blessed, child of God, brought healing and brought strength and brought hope. God is with you. Hear that for yourself this holy season. God is with you, O favored ones. God has always favored you. He's always blessed you. He does today, and he always will into eternity. Now that's a Christmas to celebrate. That's a Christmas upon which you can build life and have life. That's God's hopes and God's dreams for you, but for our whole world will then come to know the gift of peace in Jesus.